Okay, very good. So I understand the mic is on. We have an audience, so we waited a bit to have everybody here because I understand that the starting session ran over. So I'm very happy to moderate this session here on the EU Biotech Act, or Acts actually, a game changer for Europe's innovators. So I will be very short because we also have to catch up with some time, and I want to leave enough time to our speakers, and of course then to still have time for Q&As. Afterwards with the audience here and online. Let me just say that I think it's really fair to say that biotechnology is back. I mean, I think it's now generally recognized that biotechnology is a super important critical technology. We adopted in the European Commission, still under the last mandate of the Commission in 2024, a communication on biomanufacturing, biotechnology, and I was actually very, very impressed by the feedback and the resonance we had with all the stakeholders. I had myself worked on biotechnology at the beginning of the 90s when it was the first momentum for this, but I have to say this was really quite impressive, and I think we are on a good track now, and that's one of the reasons why we have this session here today on this really booming sector. And we have lots and lots of SMEs and startups active, which obviously want to scale, which have very innovative solutions, and we need to discuss what is holding them up at the moment, how they can sometimes team up also with larger companies, where basically the issues are in order to make sure that biotech in Europe is thriving even much more than it is, and that most of all, we don't lose the competitive edge in areas where we're still top-notch worldwide, and particularly in the food area. And I think this is a really important issue we want to tackle. So this session is actually spot on time-wise, because you probably know that in 2 weeks, we will have the bioeconomy strategy, which is very broad, which focuses on bioeconomy in all its different aspects. Which is very much under the lead of our Environment Commissioner. But of course, I mean, let's say very clearly, all the Commission services contribute to the different strategies, and I think that's very important. But then the reason why we're here is actually that we have a forthcoming, we thought, Biotech Act in a singular, but now actually it turns out we will have 2 Biotech Acts, basically part 1, part 2. So we will have a first part in December, which will be focused on health. So there we have all the issues relevant for the health applications, and then we will have a second part, probably in Q3 or so 2026, which will cover all the other aspects important for biotech, the industrial aspects, the manufacturing, all the different sectors. And for that, we have worked with some of you very extensively. We have some studies ongoing. We are doing consultations. And actually, we're quite happy that we now have this 2-stage approach, because that gives us also the opportunity to bring in all the different feedback we are receiving. So now let me move to the panel I have here today, which is a very interesting one, and which will address all, I mean, hopefully all these issues. What do we actually need to make sure that we have a really stable, predictable environment for biotech? What do you expect also from us as European Commission? What do you need in general in order to thrive? And I would just like to say up front, we have the different speakers, then we'll have a Q&A, and at the very end, I would like to ask them a quick roundup question to basically that we have something which will stay with us from the session. So let me now introduce the panelists. So first I have here Moritz Wessely, who is co-founder and CEO of the Precision Biome, which is a Munich-based company which specializes in microbiome research and technology. I will let him explain further what he does precisely, but it's a super interesting technology. After that, we have Barbara Taudorf, who has a very long and varied experience. Here again, I let her pick what she wants to highlight. But at the moment, very important for 21st Bio company. And then we have Michael Raas-Wallstedt, sorry for my wonderful Danish, who is head of Danish Industry Biosolutions, with whom I have already interacted previously, who is basically heading the Danish industry community on biosolutions. And so you see we have many different and interesting perspectives. So what I would suggest is we start right away with Moritz. Please, I think we also have some slides. Please give us your take and your experience in your sector.
Thank you. So this is the clicker, right? Yeah. Great. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. My name is Moritz Wessely from Precision Biome. Yes, exactly. Precision Biome is, as mentioned, a Munich-based company. We have an AI-powered platform to eradicate chronic diseases with the power of the human gut microbiome. With our platform, we individually decipher the hidden patterns in the microbiome and then optimize them in a personalized and targeted and patient-specific way to give people their life and health back. Before I head in, I want to note, I'm not an expert. I'm only like an innovator and visionary by heart, and this is what I hope to add, an operator's lens to this policy discussion. I'm also a child of biotechnology, as biotechnology gave me my life back, and which is also why now I'm building for the 4 billion people out there currently left without answers. And I'm also a child of Europe. I was born in 1997, so I grew up with free borders, free travel, the euro, and the idea that no matter where you're from, you're always an European. But now, tectonics are shifting. The US is cooling down with science and truth declared the enemy, and China is accelerating rapidly. I just returned from a business trip to Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and in matters of hardware and software, China is leading the race, 10 years ahead of anyone else. So trying to catch up with them in this sector would, in my opinion, be a futile endeavor. In biotech, however, there still is potential to reposition Europe and carve out new spaces for European biotech ingenuity. So I invite each and every one of you, let's fall madly in love again with the European idea, and let's make biotech its most practical expression. If we designed European biotech from our values up, how would it look like? In my opinion, for a new European biotech revolution, we shouldn't copy the US or the Chinese playbook. No, instead, let's be Europe on purpose and refocus on what makes us actually competitive. Let us unite our values with economy for innovation, and let all of these reinforce each other. Let us unite our builders, scientists, and policymakers to solve for humanity, not just markets. And based on that, let us show that the European idea still is practicable, actionable, and also, and most importantly, finally let it be evidenced by hard results. So why are we not doing it already? Why is it still the case that brilliance is created here, but its value captured elsewhere? In my opinion, from a builder's perspective, the two most important factors are our ecosystems are fragmented. We have 27 little petri dishes, and we lack a clear center of power and gravity. We don't have like a Harvard and MIT, a Stanford, and we also have no central market for like access to the heavy capital that is needed for true biotech innovation. Speaking of capital, we have a heavy capital misalignment. At the moment, we will need 10 more EQT, Sofinnova, or Forbions to match the capital available currently to US startups. And also the same for China, where we have massive public spending and grants, and local governments are actually competing with each other to offer the best starting conditions for their high innovation companies. Here, in contrast, many highly innovative builders are competing for the same pool of sparse and mediocre funds. So these people who actually stay here and succeed here in the end, these are the ones who succeed despite the system, not because of it. And we should change that. We should finally build a truly integrated system that is optimized for trust and speed at scale. So what I would propose is let's build this Hub Europa as an integrated innovation network that spans the whole European Union. Let's give each country a different vertical to focus on. For example, let's make France actually the officially designated hub for agri-food in biotech. Let's take Malta over marine biotechnology, as they're already very, very good at it. And then let's have a central node to harmonize and manage all of the system. This allows us to decentrally test, validate, and incubate, and then scale the most promising, most high-impact solutions centrally. So what we should do is we should stop to think in pipelines and silos, and finally start building integrated networks. For this to work, we need finance that actually fits biotech. We need an integrated capital stack end-to-end that supports our companies from inception of validation to scaling, even beyond the exit. So for early stage companies, this means easy access to capital. We want our builders to actually innovate, not spend months actually filling out paperwork and application forms or hiring hordes of consultants of doing the job for them. For later stage, we need the public-private co-investment for the heavy capital needed for this kind of innovation, with the public co-investing on private market terms. Otherwise, this won't work. And we need alternative revenue and exit models. For example, public funds that focus on technology buyouts of the most promising companies and also take care of back licensing this technology to our big pharma champions for further scaling and internationalization. But first of all, I think we need a trust-first mindset. At this very moment, we're killing billions in potential ROI on innovation just to prevent a few million in fraud and misuse. We should stop that. Europe, let's trust your builders and we won't disappoint you. So yeah, as you can see, the challenges are manifold, but in my opinion, as always, where there's danger, salvation can grow. So let's not double down on protective regulation and go into total stasis. Rather, let's head full on in building mode. If we want to craft the actual regulation for a new era of innovation, regulation itself needs to be innovated. And if we look back, in 1952, the Monetary Union was founded based on economic interest and to provide a new counterweight in the emerging Cold War climate. But 4 years ago, 1948, we held the Den Haag conference based on the European idea, the European dream, and values much, much bigger than only economy. So what I want to say with this is Europe always understood to unite these two seemingly distant motivations and base them on the rich foundation of innovation dating back centuries. So let's make Europe a place again where future is forged. Let's make the people who actually built here feel that on every step along the way, they are supporting and strengthening the foundation of this European dream. Let's make our obsession with context and integrate and harmonize systems an actual advantage and our federal structure, not a burden, but a superpower. Let us build this hub Europa and equip it with the necessary skills and capital. That makes moonshots not just a probability, but inevitable. So when we look back on the European Biotech Act in 5 years, a game changer for Europe's innovation, let there be no question mark. My name is Moritz Wessely from Precision Biome. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay. Oh, thanks a lot, Moritz. That was well on time, and I forgot to say that you actually got the silver medal in the Young European Entrepreneur Award, so I think which is worth mentioning. So now, Barbara, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for a very visionary presentation. Some of you may have seen me nodding heavily, particularly in 2 points. You said that we're still ahead in biotechnology here compared to China. Where I also look into a lot of other technology areas and AI and where we're struggling a little bit more. But here we are actually ahead, so that was one thing. The other very important point that you made is that we need specialized funding, and I hope that we can get back to that in our session. So thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Barbara Taudorf. I have more than 20 years experience, and you're right, in various sectors across government. I've been building technology companies and infrastructure, both across government, the financial industry, and latest in venture. I also serve on several boards, including the Sovereign Wealth Fund, where we have good representatives today. And for the reason why I'm here is that I have, for the past few years, been so lucky to be part of the management team at 21st Bio, a company that uses precision fermentation to produce essential proteins like those in milk. And I'll try to be a little bit more sort of case-oriented today to supplement what Moritz was saying. So at 21st Bio, we built production technology that allows other companies to manufacture protein at scale. We don't produce the proteins in 21st Bio. We enable others to do it efficiently at commercial cost and sustainably. We work with fruit producers all over the world, from the US to Europe and Asia, Middle East, because the demand for high quality protein is growing everywhere. Precision fermentation is actually not new. It has been trusted for decades to produce medicine and enzymes and even beer, as we all know it. The principle is very simple. We or the scientists at 21st Bio teaches microbes to produce animal proteins like those found in cow's milk. So if you go to a dairy and see their milk powder, it looks like this. We have an exact copy here, just produced with precision fermentation. No cows, no methane, no antibiotics, just pure nutritious protein made with European scientists. This science was born here and developed in Europe. It builds on decades of both Danish and European biotechnology. The same technology is behind Novo Nordisk insulin and GLP-1 medicine. It's behind Novo Nordisk's enzymes, and we're so lucky to then both be owned by these two good companies and foundations behind, and then also have an exclusive license to the Novo Nordisk technology. But this whole history means that we have an incredibly skilled workforce. We have the most leading technology in the world right here in Europe. But even with all this, our technology is being taken to market elsewhere. The first protein that we developed, beta-lactoglobulin, or BLG, is the most nutritious protein in whey. It will reach consumers in the US before Europe. And why is that? That's because it took us less than a year to obtain a self-affirmed GRAS, while in Europe it is expected to take at least 5 years or even more. We will see with the new Biotech Act where that takes us. And that is although the BLG is a naturally occurring protein from milk. We have just copied it, and it is produced with technology that has been known for centuries. And this kind of regulation just simply means that a European innovation won't reach European consumers. So the message from my customers is pretty clear, and they include both European companies and large US food companies. They tell me, Barbara, we will not take regulatory risk. They're pretty sort of blunt. They will simply move their production elsewhere. Their product launches, their investments to the US, the Middle East, or Asia. Factories will be built, jobs will be created, just not in Europe. So, and as you rightly mentioned here, this is not only about one ingredient. This is about Europe's position in the global food system. And as a technologist, I would also see in the global technology system, the world urgently needs more protein. Demand is rising fast while milk production is stagnating. We speak to large dairies and ingredients across the world. They all say the same. Animal-based production can no longer meet the demand. And as I was sharing with you just before, when we traveled to Japan, they said we import more than 60% of our food from outside of Japan. Our farmers' population is 68 in average. It's a little bit difficult to feed the Japanese population with homegrown food, so they urgently need this kind of technology. Now, it's always easier to make the example with a country very far away, but the same is the case for France, for Ireland, for even for Northern Europe and the US. Yeah. So, and going back to Europe, I think this is just a very interesting example. 1 in 3 Europeans will be over 60 in 2050. We will need additional high-quality protein to meet the demands of the aging population, equivalent of 1 million milking cows. Just go back to your governments and ask who would like to have 1 million extra milking cows on the fields. That does not really seem realistic. But adding 35 protein factories is actually realistic. And it will create jobs, investments, and will boost technology development further here in Europe. So, if we want to stay competitive and keep innovation here in Europe, we need 3 actions. First, we need fast-track approvals for known food proteins for both the protein and the protein technology. If it's already a well-known technology and we know that it's safe, then it shouldn't face the same, and I know that we already discussed this, it shouldn't face the same lengthy processes as chemicals or as innovations that no one has seen before. The second thing is that you need direct support for production facilities. I think everybody is sort of more or less familiar with AI infrastructure. So we need those chips. We need those NVIDIA chips. Everybody knows that. But we haven't really come to an understanding of what is the infrastructure that we need within biotechnology. It's very clear. We need factories. And in those factories, you put the fermenters, and in those fermenters, you put the biology. And the good thing is that it's a little bit more easier to exchange for the next generation of technology in biology, because you just add a new microbe into the fermenter. You don't have to pull out the full fermenter and everything like you have to do with the next generation of an AI factory. The third thing, and I'll end up on the point that you also made, and I think we can discuss that on the panel. We must help companies across the valley of death. We at 21st Bio are so lucky to have one of these funds as our investors, Novo Holdings. But there are not many Novo Holdings in this world. So I completely concur to your point that we need more specialized funding in this environment. So in Europe, we have the science, we have the companies. Now we need the innovation to bring, or the framework to bring innovation to market and keep Europe competitive. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Barbara. I think you brought in also what is, I think, very important, this sort of strategic dimension, because this is something which I think has become more and more prominent now, that basically when we talk about biotech, this is something which we can do close in our own surroundings with our own ingredients. And I think the whole issue, for instance, of food security, we had completely forgotten about it for a long time, and now it's actually pretty high on the agenda again, in addition, of course, to sustainability, which is very important. And if I can just make also one comment, it's not like it's either farmers or precision fermentation. It's actually a positive sum game, and this is something I think we have to work on collectively, that there is something in for everyone. And this is not sort of a negative sum game as it's sometimes presented.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Thanks.
Complementary.
Exactly, so. Okay, so now Michael, last but not least, please.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and not least, thank you so much, Barbara, for
and
that.
Don't fall over here.
No, that would be a work accident. We don't want to have that. And also, again, thank you to you, Kristen, for leading this panel and also presenting myself. And just to be honest, I have two hats right now on stage. I do represent Danish industry, an industry organization here in Denmark, but also part of the European Biosolutions Coalition we'll just come back to. So there's two different lines to what I'm presenting today. And also, we did cheat a bit, so actually we tried to align the messages here so we won't say the three exact same things. And actually how we wanted to, for you to understand what's going on, actually we have two, I would say, innovative European startups, SMEs on stage right now, and then just take a step back and look to the bigger picture, not what's actually going on. So I do have 3 points I hope you will remember after today, and then I'll just then jump into my favorite story about the favorite Danish scientists, because there's a lesson to be learned here. But the 3 points I really want you to take off, as we've done here in a moment, is that yes, Europe is world leading within biosolutions. As Barbara mentioned, we have some points we want to address and revise, but in the basics, we are world leading. We have a world leading ecosystem right here in Europe. 2, we are also critical dependent on global supply chains and challenges from the planetary boundaries we need to address. And then by coincidence, a broad and bold Biotech Act is one of the solutions to handle those 2 issues, how we get to a European that's competitive and resilient. But jumping back to the picture of this very nice gentleman just over here, this is Emil Christian Hansen. He was one of the lead scientists of Carlsberg Research Laboratories. This picture is taken approximately around 1883, so that's 150 years ago. And he was the one to purify the yeast. And the point I'm raising here is that before then, I would say all brewers in all the world couldn't explain why some beer went good and some beer went bad. And he was the one to discovering there's actually a microbe, the yeast, who is actually brewing the beer and making sure you actually have a high quality of beer. So by that, he also funded the modern biotech sector here in Europe, because he suddenly realized that these small microbes actually are microfactories, just as Barbara's companies and also Morris's companies are highly dependent upon. Because right now in the future, we don't need, I would say, huge scale companies as in chemical companies. We need tiny micro companies in terms of these kind of microfactories. So yes, I have the two hats on. So coming from Danish Biosolutions, we have 120 members plus. And the point I really want to make here is that the vast majority of members, at least 80%, maybe also 90%, are SMEs. So say everything that's about the biotech sector, and especially going back to the Biotech Act, that will, I would say, directly benefit SMEs, because it's a hugely innovative sector coming out of European research institutions, and also being SMEs until hopefully they develop into the next Novo Nordisk and Novo Nordisk. But as I also mentioned, I do represent the European sector here today. So with that, we also have the hat on that's called the European Biosolutions Coalition. And we have addressed the need that we need to speak actually with one voice. Thank you for that point, Moritz, in terms of we need to get together in Europe and not have this about national interest, but actually European common interest. So that's why we have founded and also operating the coalition here together with, I would say, South European, Middle European, Eastern European industry organizations, to make sure we speak with one voice and can agree on we need to leverage the European biosolution sector. So the two challenges we really need to address in this room, and I guess everybody's seen this once in a while in different kind of formats, is the planetary boundaries. As you can definitely see, we are not living within our means. We need to do something radically different. That's why these two persons here are on stage. And secondly, we are also critically dependent on both unstable regimes where we get our inputs and also stretched supply chains. And if you saw that, or just mentioned that from Barbara's slides, yes, we do produce a lot of milk in Europe, and we need to keep doing that. But one of the inputs for these cow factories, as we could call them, is also soybeans. And a lot of these soybeans are coming from Southern America. So if Europe needs to be competitive and resilient, we need to produce much more foods in our own home turf and not be reliant on external factors and or external regimes. I don't really want to mention here on the stage, but I would say that one of the bad guys in the world we really don't want to be part of, which we are right now. So luckily, I would say the conclusion here, that's why we definitely need a broad and bold Biotech Act. And as Moritz mentioned, yes, we need to improve incentives and funding for startups. And as Barbara also mentioned, we need to, I would say, green light and accelerate the approval process. And that's I would say, 2 of the 6 main points we have in terms of what we need to broad Biotech Act. Because obviously the last point we also really want to hear from the stage here now is that we need to remove uncertainty. And that's a really good point Barbara mentioned. We need to remove uncertainty in terms of financing and also uncertainty in terms of market access. How fast can I actually get my product on the market? And that's one of the 2 main barriers we have in the European biosolution sector. And that's going to be all for me.
So, thank you very much, Mikael. So I think we have a lot of food for thought coming in from from different perspectives. So now my biggest technology challenge will be to see whether we have some questions from the online audience, but we have also quite a substantial physical audience here. So I would like to open the floor for a short Q&A session, and I'm collecting. Well, I'm starting with here.
Thank you. My name is Burçak İnal. I have worked a lot on the funding of startups and scale-ups. My question is about the idea of breaking down the silos geographically and creating more of a specialization by region, which Moritz, I think you mentioned at the beginning. I'd like to understand a little bit more about what that would entail. I mean, in practical terms, would it look like existing centers of excellence in some research institutes or companies in some countries in Europe moving to others, enhanced cooperation? And do you think that there would be a consensus around something as big as that in terms of structuring? Thank you.
Thank you. So starting with like the second question first, regarding consensus. I think it will be very, very difficult to reach that consensus, mostly because member states will feel that they lose something, they give something out of hand, yeah? They give out their own innovation to some other member state country. And I think that's exactly like the kind of thinking that has been blocking us all these years, that has led to that our federal structure actually was a burden, because it was not about what we could win, but it's always about what can we lose. This is what I think, like, as mentioned, I'm not the policymaker. I'm just like the one who's actually building. So it will be for the policymakers to decide, but I think there's so much we could gain if we finally manage to do that step. And actually, like, in this way, also in like using biotech as a niche to show that it's actually practical to act as one European Union and not as like 27 member states. So, and what it would entail specifically, yeah, I would say let's, for example, as mentioned, Malta is already leading like marine biotechnology and building up skills and expertise. And the best people for that sector are already sitting there. France has like, for Europe, the most innovative and most forward-leading companies and research centers for agri-food biotechnology. So let's move also all the other expertise to these countries and then have like central nodes where then like the most promising ones of like out of these incubation labs can come back to really be scaled on the European and global scale. This is like just the vision that I propose. It is practical. There will be challenges and difficulties. Mostly I would say like on the emotional side, yeah. But like on like the very hard fact side, for me there's like no other way how can we actually like solve that challenge and become competitive in the long run as Europe.
Upper first.
Yeah, I agree very much, and it is super sensitive. Like, how do you do that? I think what is very important if you would take that approach is that you think not only of making the innovations and supporting the innovations at university, but also how do you get them all the way to scale. Because one of the things that many investors have burnt their fingers on is to invest in technology that can't get to scale. So you need to think about how do you demonstrate, and that's where it gets really difficult for investors to understand in biotechnology. You need to see, okay, you need to have those small scale demonstrators, then you need to have larger scale demonstrators, and then you actually need to have also have funding for the big factories. And then you're right, that there may be that whole value chain in marine biology can be in Malta, and then you saw here what we're really good at in Denmark. So I'm not going to go more into that. But I think the most important thing is that you think about the entire scaling, so that you don't just get a lot of innovations out there and then don't get it into scale.
I'm going to be mindful of time, of course, but actually just echo what these two guys just said on stage, that actually I believe we're actually doing it by coincidence in Europe, but not really heartful, but actually what we need to do, and it could be through the CBE, JU undertaking, in terms of picking these sites and making sure that there's some sort of national consensus, and then developing, because right now we're actually doing it, but really not all the way through, because we can definitely see it in Denmark, we see it in Ghent, we can see it in Wageningen, we can see it in Munich as well. You do have some extremely good academic sectors, but as Barbara mentioned, we also need to make sure actually you can reach the market. So these two things need to be aligned.
Yeah, thanks. You're referring maybe for people who don't know, also the Circular Bio-Based Undertaking, which is a joint venture, public-private partnership, where we have some really interesting projects, but indeed I would say the crunch time is always then how we can make sure that we can actually bring to the market. And there, I mean, we have our own constraints, of course, in terms of also rules for funding. But what you really don't want is that you sort of develop companies and then at the very moment where they're about to scale, you say, oh no, this is too high TR level, we're not really no longer intervening. So I think that's important. And maybe just to bounce back on what you said, I think indeed it's very, I mean, scientists are already usually very mobile and we have to see where the expertise is. But what we are trying to work on as well is to link up, existing clusters to make sure that you have these sort of biotech hubs bringing in, because I think we should also not have a centralized planning that, this type is done here, this type is done there. And if you have a great idea, sorry, you're not in the right region. I don't think you meant that. But I think we need sort of also this learning exercise, because you often have indeed different regions, having bioeconomy strategies, and then the important thing, or biotech strategies. And the important thing is that they actually, link up and together, and we can see where the expertise can be found. We have been very successful actually in helping SMEs to use lab facility, for scaling up, and this is something where we had a lot of feedback that this was very, very useful. Okay, I don't think I think I'm able to operate the thing. I don't see anything online, so I give the privilege to the floor here, so to the audience here. Any other question?
Thank you very much. My name is Jan Stolberg from a Danish company, XRAI. I found the presentations very insightful. Thank you very much. And I picked up a few key points. One was the strategic approach, and the second one was the scalability. But for me, there's also a third one, which is building up the capabilities of the industry and what that requires in terms of specialized knowledge about what you're actually financing or looking at. I'm working a lot with the defense industry, and we've got the same issue there about building up the capabilities and the strategic knowledge that it requires to do it properly. So my question to you is, if you're looking at a strategic approach, where do you find the key points that you need to do something about in the chain between the raw materials to when something comes to the market? Where do you feel that the crunch point is for you at the moment as an industry to do something about?
And are you talking about the industry or the investor side of it?
Could be both.
Yeah, so maybe I think like one of the key points is, as we already like I think all agreed on, is like the funding for like the right resources. Just to bring up an example, in Germany, after like lots of to and fro, and it was also like a process development, we finally have Sprint, which is like the government agency for like leap innovation, that is basically only like exclusively staffed by people, by operators, like the greatest scientist operators who already have built successful companies in the deep tech sector, who are basically now given funding and a free hand to bring now the most innovative innovation to the next stage and actually into the market. And I think we need something like this at the European scale. At the moment, our tech transfer offices are staffed with academics, yeah? And biotech, especially biotech, is a special animal. You can't just learn about it by studying it from the outside. You have to have the experience from the driver's seat, what it is, what are the challenges, what are the difficulties, to actually bring innovation from like the lab to the market. And another big challenge in that is, just as another example, a good friend of mine is also consulting in life sciences, and he was consulting a research group recently that had developed a revolutionary process to shorten treatment time for a certain disease from 6 months back down to 1 day in the hospital. But that technology is still in drawer because nobody from the research group was willing to step out and actually cooperate it. So what I want to say, we have like the brightest minds in the universities, but of course they necessarily like not always make the best entrepreneurs to actually take that innovation to the market. So we need a link in between that actually connects the university research with the market. At this moment, we have like probably thousands of diamonds lying, sleeping in the ground, because at the universities, technologies that could really innovate and like change our market potential, and nobody comes to unearth them. And I think this is exactly where we need to step in, have like specialized offices, working groups, staffed with people who already know how to do it because they experience it in their own, life, and then like equip them with all necessary material to do their job correctly.
Yeah.
You want to?
Yeah, maybe two perspectives. The one is that we, as we've talked a lot about, we do actually have some of the best scientists in the world, and we need to have more of them. But we have something to build around. The other very particular thing that we have in Denmark is that we have some of the best smiths in the world, and it takes a lot of smith work to build these plants. So to have a structured approach, and if you want to build these factories in Europe, then you need to have people that can operate them. You need to have process engineers. You need to have. We hire people from breweries. Because they know how to operate big tanks, and you need to have downstream people. So there are a lot of technical skills that are not so that you don't need a PhD for it, but you need to have very specialized skills. So I think there's a lot of scaling around the operational side. Then coming back to the investor point, I spend a lot of, because my customers are both those very, very large corporates and then startups. Speaking to the startups, I spend a lot of time with them, helping their investors understand what they do. and their special place in the value chain, because these poor people, they are demanded to be able to be the best trained engineers, the best to take things to scale, the best marketeers, and it's just not possible. So to have this understanding that if we mature biotechnology for the next generation, so to produce food, to produce things that can make us healthier, then we need to also specialize. That's well known in the venture industry when you talk about financial industry, when you talk about AI. Of course, you don't do both the infrastructure layer and AI and applications. That's not going to happen. But this is what you demand, that the investors demand from companies in biotechnology. So that's crucial. And I don't have any ambition of being able to teach all sort of general investors about this. So it's back to the point about that we need more specialized investors in this field, because a lot of the generalist investors have burnt their hands in a previous generation of biotechnology that had a lot of promise but couldn't get into production. And that has made them withdraw somewhat. So now we need the next sort of specialized generation that are specialized just as you're specialized in quantum or infrastructure in AI.
Quick take from you as well? Or?
Yes, of course. And obviously, just touching upon what Barbara mentioned here is that obviously probably also the question to the answer to the first question in terms of where should we focus our future biotech hubs or verticals or silos, what we call them, that will probably be where we actually have also world-leading companies. And we say, for better and worse, we have one of the global's best biotech companies in our backyard that drives up wages for Barbara's employees. But on the other hand, we also have one of the best people in the world just 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from us in terms of operators, SMEs, and everybody else in the production on the floor. So I would say that's probably also the answer to the question in terms of we need to also make sure we're bridging the link between the corporations and the SMEs, because there's a lot of capabilities there we can use.
I would maybe just add a totally different angle when we're talking strategic considerations. It's also access to feedstock, because I think this is once you're actually into the scaling, and this is what we see very often, that companies actually still go somewhere else because the access to feedstock is easier and cheaper. So I think that's also something we need to make sure when we're talking large scale fermentation, that it's actually attractive to do it here. So we actually reached the normal limit. I don't see any super burning question now. So what I would like to do is just really 30 seconds each, just to sum up again. If you had one wish for the Biotech Act, what would you like to see in it? Start with you.
So what, as mentioned, and as we all, I think, agree on, what we need in Europe now is like a truly ambitious action to build up this integrated network of innovation, of ingenuity, and then equip it with the right skills and capital that we can actually get to the next stage and reposition Europe as a new biotech leader again.
Barbara? I think I know.
Very short term, I would recommend that the Commission took a vaccine approach to getting 10 novel foods through the system. We know it can. We know you guys can do it. So that would be really interesting. For the Biotech Act, I would really, as you say, urge for fast approvals, and fast in the sense that not cut 1 year off, but be competitive to US, and that means 1 year, 1.5 years.
So we had the ecosystem, we had financing and approval. So I'm guessing my point would be have a single market that actually works in Europe.
Very good. We can, as a director in the DG dealing with the single market, I can only approve that. So, thank you very much for, I think, what was a very dynamic session, for your interactions. And of course, to be continued with now first bioeconomy strategy and then hopefully our 2 biotech acts. And in the meantime, please do actively contribute your ideas while there is still time to integrate them well in our acts. So thank you very much, and I think now it's coffee break for some, and we have another session starting here right now on retail. If anybody is interested in retail, you're welcome to stay. Or you have your coffee outside.
Yeah, exactly.